What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and to be perfectly honest, I have tried to film this video 6 freaking times, but I just keep freaking out about this news topic, but now let's try and calm down and get into it. So Sony has just officially stated that they are not going to be showing up to E3 2020. Now at first, that seems like a kind of minor thing. I mean, after all, they didn't show up in E3 2019, right? But there is a big major difference. In 2019, if we're just being brutally frank, Sony didn't have a lot to show off. There weren't a bunch of big games coming out, and it was definitely a time for them to sort of just catch their breath. But in 2020, they're going to be revealing the PlayStation 5. I mean, pretty much everybody, myself included, kind of assumed that they would be taking the stage in front of the biggest audience in the world and saying, hey, this is what the box looks like. Pretty much every piece of tech that has ever been released in the gaming aspect of Sony has been revealed at E3. I mean, the PlayStation Portable, the PlayStation 3, heck, the original PlayStation. Now, obviously, this is the PlayStation Slim. These were revealed at freaking E3 1995. So they have had an outstanding partnership for years and years and years. So the fact that they are specifically saying, hey, screw you, we're doing our own show, that is a pretty significant statement. So I want to read what they said very, very specifically because it's very revealing as to why they're doing this. I'm very interested as to why we're seeing this weird sudden pitch of Sony trying to go their own way. So let's take a look what they said. Okay, so these are their exact words. After thorough evaluation, SIE has decided not to participate in E3 2020, said a Sony Interactive Entertainment spokesperson. We have a great respect for the ESA, which is the people who actually run E3. We respect them as an organization, but we do not feel that the vision of E3 2020 is a right venue for what we're focused on this year. We'll build upon our global event strategy in 2020 by participating in hundreds of consumer events across the globe and our focus on making sure fans feel part of the PlayStation family. And I'm trying to read it around my microphone, and have titles coming up for the PlayStation 4 with the upcoming launch of PlayStation 5. We're truly looking forward to the year of celebration with our fans. Now that is a heck of a mouthful, but I feel like what's going on here is actually pretty direct. What they're saying is, we want to control how things are said. I think that Sony is in a very, very unique position that has never, ever, ever happened before, which is that right now, the PlayStation 4 is way on top. They have over 100 million consoles sold. Now, this has happened a couple times in the past. We have seen certain systems that became incredibly successful. Things like the Nintendo Wii. A lot of people realize the Nintendo Wii is a huge, huge seller, but there was a major difference. There was a lot of people picking up a Nintendo Wii console, but there wasn't a huge attach rate. The average person who owned a Nintendo Wii typically just had a couple games. Whereas the people who are buying PlayStation 4s are scooping up a ton of games. Partially because they do so many PlayStation sales, but also just because I feel like the nature of gaming has changed. If you're somebody who's buying a $300 or $400 console, you don't just leave it there to sit on your shelf. You're constantly shopping now. You're constantly worrying about what the next big experience is, which is why we've seen this weird thing happen, which is where people are buying a bunch more games day one and in much bigger numbers. Like, think about something like Red Dead Redemption 2 was obviously very, very cross-platform. Red Dead Redemption 2 is now even on things like PC, but is a huge, monumental success specifically on the PlayStation 4. So I think that Sony realizes that they have something that nobody else has in such a significant manner, which is brand power. They're able to push games and push systems, or at least that's definitely the way they see it. So what does this mean? Honestly, I think it's that they're trying to make sure that they can lock down who, where, and why people are talking about the PlayStation 5. They want to make sure that the PlayStation 5 has everything airtight for when it launches later this year. They want to make sure that when the PlayStation 5 is revealed, when it has its first little debut images, they have every single piece of it perfectly packaged. Now let's just talk about this E3 has kind of been dying off. This is not a controversial statement. Some people get weird about defending E3, but I think we can all agree that E3 has had some issues recently. There was the huge leaks where they were accidentally doxing a bunch of people who went, which, oh my gosh, what a huge freaking mess. But beyond that, let's just kind of consider the fact that E3 has actually had very, very declining numbers. More people are watching online, but practically nobody went this last year. In 2019, there were so many pictures of just empty hallways, where clearly people on the show floor were just not as excited to even be attending the event. Now, clearly this is just our observations from the outside, of people who are just on the other side of the glass looking into E3. But clearly, somebody has been doing some number crunching over at Sony and realized that it's just not worth it. I mean, just kind of consider this for a second. Think about the fact that whenever E3 is going on, the stage presentations are typically done in huge stadiums with thousands of seats, and then have tons and tons of different lighting rigs, cinematography, all these trailers that are being cut together and then put onto giant sound systems that are of course bought and paid for by the companies themselves. There's onstage actors, sometimes live performances. Not to try and shed too much light on reality here, but that stuff is expensive. Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo are very likely spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to do presentations like this. And while they're certainly glamorizing and kind of appealing to watch, are they financially viable? Sony, I think, has kind of just realized that this stuff, it's just not as important as it used to be. Now, if I'm just being perfectly honest here for a second, I am personally disappointed. I like E3. I like watching E3. I like seeing all the different cool, the crazy ensemble. I like the kind of the battle of consoles. That stuff to me is very, very appealing. And the fact that they're not going definitely kind of crushes my hype, at least to a degree, for E3. Oddly enough, though, this may end up being a very, very good thing for E3 itself. It seems like occasionally, whenever these things, there's like these giant shakeups or these weird upsets, it can sometimes spur in a giant period of growth. And I feel like E3, it's definitely been stagnating. It hasn't really done anything to try and reinvent itself or, well, really kind of draw in new fans and new audiences. I mean, why are people even going to these events? It's nice to see, but what is the point in really doing the journey and taking the pilgrimage if a lot of these demos and stuff end up being put on PlayStation Now or whatever 3 weeks later? I think that PlayStation, they've kind of finally actually done something which may end up increasing the appeal of E3, at least for the viewer's sake. It seems like the tone overall for E3 this year is going to be much more friendly and less combative. I mean, already we've heard a bunch of statements from Microsoft and Nintendo over the course of the last couple of months especially, talking about how they don't see Sony as a rival. They're just friends on the other side of the island of like, all right, we're making our games here, they're making some games over there, everybody's winning. And this is a great point of view. I mean, obviously, this is a good time to be a gamer. I'm glad I own every console, and while I'm buying a PlayStation 5, I'm also buying a Switch Pro if that exists, and I'm definitely buying an Xbox Series X. But I guess I'm just kind of in this place now where I'm thinking, what's going to happen at E3? Are they still going to try and get us hyped up? Is there going to be some sort of like PlayStation Now? Are they still going to try and have their own little state of play? Or are they just going to stay silent that week? There's already a bunch of rumblings and some little tiny leaks saying that they're about to do their own little showing here in like a month. In the middle of February, it sounds like they wanted to try and do a big event up in New York, which people are already assuming is going to be the official reveal of the PlayStation 5. But what happens after that? Once we've seen the box, we gotta talk games. Are they going to be trying to do demo booths at Best Buys? Or are they going to try and take the PlayStation 5 on tour? Or is this just going to be a matter of trying to show the best trailers on YouTube? I feel like E3 is still important. While the numbers have gone down, while the people aren't flying across the freaking United States to try and get to it as much, it's still had an important purpose. And without, I guess what I'm really getting at is, I'm curious how, if anything, this is going to affect the PlayStation 5's launch. But I want to know your thoughts. Tell me everything down below as to why you think that Sony has just decided to say, screw you to E3. Let me know what you think, and do me a favor, give this video a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. Man, I'm so blown away. This is such a weird time. There may not be E3 in 3 or 4 years. I mean, this may be really the slow death of the Electronic Entertainment Expo, and I never even got to go to it. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.